Good evening to everybody across the Sunshine State, especially those in Central Florida. You're watching the Central Florida Blitz on FortHSFootball.com as we come to you on this Monday evening, heading into week number 5. We are now at the midway point of the 2024 high school football season, and the state of Florida, Central Florida, here on the Central Florida Blitz. Good evening, Joshua Wilson here with you. And make sure you're following us on social media at Florida HS Football on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel at Florida HS Football. You can also click the notification bell, get notifications when we go live and upload new videos on Florida HS Football YouTube channel. And of course, you can follow us on X/Twitter. That is at FLAHS Football. And good evening to everybody. You can hit the comments, post your comments, regardless of where you're watching, Facebook, Twitter, or on YouTube. We got, if we comment, we'll post it up on for you. And our guest coming up tonight, a little bit right after around 7:45, is head coach Justin Roberts of the Orange City University Titans. Yes, the university in Orange City, not the one in Orlando. To make sure they were clear on that one. But we got head coach Roberts from the University Titans joining us. University off to a 4-0 start, and their biggest game so far of the season that's coming up this week against also another undefeated team in O'Galley. So we'll be talking to Coach about that and everything the team has done coming up here around 7:45. But with that said, how about this? We'll get started with the blitz lines here, and Coco gets back the things on track easily with Palm Bay Heritage. 39-13 Tigers. They needed that win, honestly, for them, because Coco really, kind of got against ING Academy, really just kind of struggled there, and getting that win after getting beaten by IMG Academy was huge for them. And honestly, you'll need that for this week going into the game against Venice, and that's a huge game for the Tigers coming in this week. And we'll talk more about that on the Gulf Coast Blitz, because that'll actually be on the pick 6 for the Gulf Coast Blitz, the Coco at Venice game this week. And if it sounds like we're featuring a lot of these same teams each week, well, when they're great matchups every week, that's how we do it. And that's what we're going to do each and every week, is feature some of the best games around the state. And again, on the Gulf Coast Blitz, that's coming up at 8:30 tonight here on FortHSFootball.com. But yes, Coco Tigers back on track, 3-1 on the season. And with that said, we're going to take a little bit of a trip over on the beach line, and we're going to talk about First Academy here. First Academy 4-0 on the season. Slammed the door shut on Melbourne Central Catholic, who both teams are state ranked here. In Class 1A, First Academy number 4, Melbourne Central Catholic number 6, and First Academy 42-6 over MCC. And the Royals looking pretty good now. However, that does lead us into this next part of the blitz lines here, and that's where First Academy, per Buddy Collins of the Orlando Sentinel, the FHA is investigating some allegations. The closure of the allegation so far, what it seems like here is that there's really hasn't been a disclosure at this particular point with the allegations. And at this particular point, there was a couple of coaches that have, there's been a couple of coaches that were basically, they were held out of the game. Some players were held out of the game, what it sounded like from the report that was put out Friday, right before game time. And, at this particular point, we're not sure what the sanctions may be against First Academy, if there's anything that's going to come about it. But the FHA is investigating First Academy, and we'll see what happens from there for the Royals. But so far, Royals 4-0. Nothing has been forfeited at this particular conjecture. So we'll wait and see what happens here going forward, and we'll keep an eye on what Buddy Collins reports there at the Orlando Sentinel, longtime journalist in the Sunshine State. If you don't know about Buddy Collins, give him a follow there, and they get some great reporting there at the Orlando Sentinel. All right, I'm still head scratching my thoughts on Mainland. Now this is Mainland 0-4, 35-14 loss on the road to Reigns, and I'm not saying that Mainland's out of the playoffs here yet. There's just no way they're out of the playoffs here because they're in a 3-team district that includes. I'm going to say I'm still trying to remember the classifications, but 5A, it's a 3-team district for them, which I believe it's Bellevue, and there's one other team. I think it's Matanzas is the other team. Actually, I want to say that's the third team in that district, and Mainland, I feel like Mainland will still win that district, but it's gonna be cutting teeth here potentially. If Mainland gets into the playoffs here, I would suspect that they're gonna be at no best a 7 or 8 seed this year, and usually hard to see a defending state champ come out of that like that and be on the low end of their playoff ranking there. But when we see the playoff rankings come out next week, we will definitely have a better idea of what's going on and how that's going to shape up. Regardless, Mainland playing a great tough schedule, by no means. And one of those losses, I should say, for Mainland came against the Orange City University week 1. So it's been 0-4. It's been downhill ever since then. So for the Mainland Buccaneers, and going from there. How about Bishop Moore? Bishop Moore still undefeated on the season, 4-0 with a district victory over Mount Dora. Some people thought Mount Dora had a chance against Bishop Moore, but when we were going through and looking at it, I was like, well, for me, the Hornets right now are the cream of the crop in their district, and that includes Mount Dora, Tavares, Port Orange, Atlantic, and I want to say it's Eustis is the other team. So a 5-team district there, sitting there in Class 3As, but the Hornets rolling pretty well here, but looking at Leesburg, I'm going to jumping ahead here. I actually had Bishop Moore, and I just skipped that on it's the thing. But anyways, we'll jump ahead to Leesburg here. Leesburg suffering their first loss to Vanguard, and but I will say this: I got to give it up for the Yellow Jackets keeping it close against the night. 21-14 was the score, and some people thought maybe with Leesburg the schedule they had played, with the amount of points they were scoring, at least 50 points a game, that the weak schedule at the start would come back to bite them here. But they gave Vanguard a game, 21-14. Leesburg does take its first loss of the season, but it's showing signs they can compete here. So that is definitely huge for the Leesburg Yellow Jackets under first-year head coach there, Frank Scott. Now, Spruce Creek, they suffered their first loss of the season in a battle against former Mainland head coach Travis Rowland and his Camden County Wildcats. So right there alone with Spruce Creek, I can say this: that was a great challenge to go take. Go up to Georgia, learn a little, learn a few things from how Georgia football is played, because there are a few differences between the Florida and the Georgia type of football, and Spruce Creek will come back and they'll have that loss under their belt. But if anything, we usually see when great losses happen for teams, usually I should say great losses, but a loss for a team, it motivates them. And that should hopefully be the case here for Spruce Creek going forward. All right. I mentioned this last week on the show. I thought I was in the picks. I was like, I was kind of hesitant about Jones, given the fact that they only won by 7 points the previous week to Evans, but this past week they took care of business, and they took it with a double-digit win over Edgewater, 31-21, and Jones remains unbeaten, and they got a big game this week coming up at Osceola, so that is going to be a fun one. That'll be a game featured on the Pick 6 this week, and definitely thinking that the Jones Tigers will be a team to keep an eye on going forward. They were number 2 in our Class 4A rankings, according to the FloridaHSFootball.com sports media poll. All right, how about, speaking of Osceola, thumping St. Cloud in the 101st meeting, which is one of the oldest rivalries in the state. Not the oldest rivalry, that goes to Hardy and DeSoto County there downstate, but one of the oldest rivalries in the top 5 of oldest rivalries in the state. And in the 101st meeting, Osceola 56-6 over St. Cloud, and gotta love it when you see that the games are in when you're talking in triple digits of meetings. That is exciting to talk about, but I wish it was a little bit closer. But it has not. The meeting between these two teams has not been close in quite a while, but hopefully one day it will get back to that, because we love to see rivalry games be that, and with the meetings of these two teams. And going down into Orange County here, West Orange and Dr. Phillips both remain unbeaten. West Orange and Dr. Phillips both 3-0 on the season. West Orange took care of Boone 24-17. Dr. Phillips stays unbeaten with a 21-7 victory over Ocoee. And what's interesting this week is Dr. Phillips will have a big challenge with Lake Mary coming to down there to I'm forgetting the name of the stadium. I know the stadium last name is Spoon there at Dr. Phillips. It's forgetting that slipping my mind because usually it's at the top of my head here with Dr. Phillips. But Lake Mary coming to visit Dr. Phillips this weekend, I will say this, that will be a matchup. It will give the Panthers a big, big test with that as well. But as we mentioned here, Orange City University still rolling now at 4-0 with the 46-7 victory over Daytona. But as we said earlier, they got a tough road trip coming up at O'Galley this week. And we're going to have head coach Justin Roberts from the University Titans on here in just a moment. But first, before we head to the 2-minute water break here, we got what I'm going to debut here on this is, and we're going to do this on all the shows, is a scoreboard of the teams that are ranked in our FloridaHSFootball.com sports media poll from the previous week. The new rankings come out on Wednesday, every Wednesday on FloridaHSFootball.com, but you'll see how the teams fared and who are ranked in the FloridaHSFootball.com sports media poll. And you'll see that right here coming up right here as we head into the break. We'll be right back right after this on FloridaHSFootball.com and on the Central Florida Blitz. Joshua Wilson back here on the Central Florida Blitz here. Make sure you're following us again on social media at Florida HS Football on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and hit that notification bell to get notifications on when we go live or when we post new content. And, of course, follow us on Twitter, or if they call it X now, at FLAHS Football. And joining us now is the head coach of the Orange City University Titans. That is head coach Justin Roberts, and appreciate you, Coach, joining us here. 4-0 on the season, and when you took over the team a year ago, you kind of started leading the charge to get the university back on the map once more. And what did you learn from your first year being head coach there to now year 2 here going for you? And what did you tell the guys going into the season? Did you even expect your guys to be here at 4-0 at this point going to a big game this week against Ocala?
Well, that's a good question. First, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank you for what you do for Florida high school football. I know, our kids love it. Our program loves it. My son loves it. He gets to check in on all the scores and everything through your service and everything. So thank you. I think the first year, I've been at university for going on 12 years now. So I've been pretty ingrained in the community. I worked really close with Coach Kells, and he gave me a lot of, probably more authority than an assistant coach normally would. And so I kind of got to see, some things that worked, some things that didn't work, and I think at the end of the day, you still are never prepared to be in the fighter pilot seat until you're in the seat. Last year was an awesome year, and you kind of got to try some things and see what works and see what you like. I think knowing how much we had coming back, it was a different challenge though, this year, and I kind of knew that, and I tried to, do some research and kind of look into it because, let's be honest, 2 years ago we were 3-7. And it's pretty easy to get motivated to, come back from that, and we snuck up on some people, truth be known, like we played some games where I don't think the other team thought that we were very good. And before you know it, we were on them. We weren't sneaking up on anybody this year. And so I think that was still the challenge to our guys was still being the hunters, not the hunted. And that just because, we're at a position now where we need to be and where we should be, that doesn't change our mindset.
No, absolutely. And just a thought, quite a comment that we had here from Mark Cannon, who was one of our show followers, said great timing with the guest going to university at Ocala. So, hey, even the viewers are watching. They want to see this game on Friday night. And, when we're looking at this, let's go back to week 1, that big win over defending 3S state champion Mainland. Obviously new head coaching change there. We're going from Travis Rowland to Jeremy Bell. What did you tell the kids going into that game? Considering that they're coming off a state championship, they're on a high, and y'all come in and y'all win this game at Daytona Stadium against Mainland. You go in there and it's a 31-28 game. What did you tell these kids for that game going into that pregame?
I think the biggest challenge with kids, and it's maybe a society thing today too, is it's going to be a battle. They're Mainland. They're unbelievable. In their record, they've had a tough schedule. But there's still so much about Mainland that's Mainland. And just understanding, hey, we're going to have some setbacks and we're going to face adversity in the game. How are we going to respond to it? I'll be honest, we didn't respond to it too well in the first half. We missed some stuff on offense. We didn't really get going defensively. We were on the field a lot. It's been a challenging year so far with the wet bulb temperatures and lightning. I would probably say we've had maybe 2 complete outside practices in the last 3 weeks. And so you have that. And then I think we were on the field for 48 snaps in the first half on defense against Mainland. And, we were struggling a little bit, and we kind of maybe started pointing fingers and, it wasn't really who we were. One of the things we try to argue, or not argue, but really enforce is my brother's keeper, and having your brother's back. And we really weren't. And it's probably a good thing there wasn't cameras in the locker room at Daytona Stadium, because we had a good little powwow and a good little talk about who we were and what we are. But I can't say enough about how we responded and how the kids responded. Mainland's such an unbelievable program, and I experienced it as a player. I played at DeLand. And, I'd always say, you go to that municipal stadium and they used to have the sand track around it and the fences and everything. And sometimes that's like a 7-point advantage. Those gold helmets come out and, you're like, man, this is it. This is awesome. So it was almost just kind of getting our guys prepared to, okay, they're a good team, but so are you. And one of the slogans we've tried to adapt this year is it's a big game because we're in it. At the end of the day, it wouldn't be a big game if both teams weren't really good. So it was a great start to our season. I feel for them a little bit, and Squatty, he's a great coach and what they've kind of experienced, but I'm sure they're going to get it going.
No, absolutely. And of course, you've had wins so far against North Miami, Pine Ridge, and Deltona here the last 3 weeks. But this week, O'Galley is on deck. And actually looking ahead, not only is it O'Galley, 4-0, Flagler Palm, because they're undefeated and potentially could be undefeated going to the game next week, when y'all have them for your first district game. So, I mean, when you look at this, and then of course I'm looking ahead even to that week after you got Tampa Jesuit. So, yeah. You set these guys up to be tested here. And so looking at this game of O'Galley, what do you know about them now as going into week 5 versus what, when everybody found out, on week 1, when they pulled off the 29-27 upset over Vero Beach.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of admired them from afar. I've kind of been aware of them. I was a ball boy on my dad's sideline growing up, and I remember when he was the head coach, we went to O'Galley, and that's actually the only time I've been there. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, but I remember I got there and they had a kicker hitting 55-yard field goals, and I went up to my dad and I was like, "Hey, you're in trouble tonight, man. Like, these guys are good." So I've always kind of had like a little bit. I've had a respect from afar. We knew they were going to be tough. I talked with the coach, in the beginning of the year, when we took the game, and we kind of realized we're kind of in the same spot. I think they were 10-2 last year. We were 10-2. They got a lot of talent, and so what we're trying to stress for our guys is, this is playoff football in September, and this is it's a big game. It's going to be a good test. It's going to be a great atmosphere. They're really, really good. They're really, really good. They'll probably be the most complete team that we've played so far, and we definitely have some challenges after them. We've kind of referred to it as a gauntlet. Not even mentioning the other teams down the road after those 3. But I think the big thing is taking it 1 week at a time, having a singular focus. I told our guys when we were leaving today, we got to have a good Tuesday tomorrow. Sometimes you think so much about the result and you don't focus on the process. And if you don't get your process right, you're not going to have a chance. So, they're a good team. We got to do a lot of good things to hopefully come out with a victory. But it's going to be a good test for hopefully what we have coming down the road.
And then really for y'all, this is really nothing new in terms of your district here. It's pretty much the same teams that, compared to last year outside of New Smyrna Beach. So, when it comes to these Volusia County rivalries, how would you describe it in the sense of how these rivalries are? Because these teams go back, tit for tat every year. It seems like, y'all are taking 2, 3, or 4 teams out of that same region, and it's like they're all going to playoffs.
It's a good thing too. Spruce Creek and DeLand, they don't have these they have kind of newcomer coaches, right? You have unbelievable coaches. Last year in our district, you had Coach Wilkinson at New Smyrna, you have Coach Price at Creek, you have Coach Darlington at DeLand. Just guys that have done so much in the game of football. And then we trade out New Smyrna for Flagler and Coach Fish at Flagler, as we was at Valdosta State a couple of years after I was there. So, he's kind of cut from the same cloth, so I know what he's about. But they're great games. They're great atmospheres. You kind of mentioned a little bit ago about what South Georgia football is like. I got to experience that a little bit in college. It's probably the closest thing to it when you play those games. They're toss-ups, and you got to play right. We got Spruce Creek last year for the first time in a little bit, but there's been some games where we arguably should have won, and there's been some games where, DeLand even, we haven't beat them in the regular season. We beat them in the Classic a couple years, when they wouldn't play us in the regular season, but they're a great team. You can't, because of that, you can't think about that down the road. They're there. They're unbelievable. We try to tell our kids we can't focus about it. We got to focus on the next game. But we as coaches, obviously, we know it's there. We know it lies ahead.
And I know that, and one unique thing that for y'all, and I know this has been kind of like this for ever since the school opened, is that y'all really y'all play some home games on campus, but y'all don't really have technically a stadium on campus, and that's one of the weird things about Volusia County.
You're trying to get me in trouble, man. You're trying to get me in trouble here.
But no, I'm not getting you in trouble here. Not getting you in trouble here. But what is the unique thing about that? Not having that traditional stadium when you play a few home games, there on campus. And then when you have to play some home games away at other schools.
Well, so I think the one thing, when I took over was we weren't doing that anymore. We weren't doing home games at other schools. I lived that as an assistant. We had shirts, Road Warriors. We had our senior night at Lake Mary one year, and I wasn't doing that. I think it's important. It's a lot of work. We can't just turn key and show up to the stadium, which would be great, but we wanted to make sure that we were building an atmosphere and a culture for our school. And so, there is a bleacher project is finally commencing. It was supposed to be ready by this year, but, unfortunately it wasn't ready in time. It's starting actually after our Tampa Jesuit game, and it's going to take a 2 to 3 month process, but it's a 1,200 seat bleacher. The county did bring in about 900 temporary bleachers, 900 to 1,000 temporary bleachers for our home games this year. So, it's unique, but it's ours. At the same time, at the end of the day, football field's 100 yards by 53 and a third. And I think our kids appreciate, having the home game, and I think it's been important for our school. I mean, the revenue and the gates and everything else like that. There's a challenge, like obviously playoffs. We got to host a playoff game. Well, we can't because FHSA rules. So our first round, we played at Daytona because our other option was Airport Stadium in New Smyrna. We're not going to play New Smyrna at New Smyrna. And then
the hike across the county there.
Yeah, exactly. And then DeLand, we played them in the second round, and they were gracious enough to offer us Spec Martin, but I don't want to play DeLand at Spec Martin, if we don't have to. So we went to Airport Stadium for the second week. So we know that's still out there for the playoffs, but it's getting there. We're doing all that we can do and trying to build it. We try to tell our kids we got to control what we can control, and we're going to make it the best possible thing that we can.
No, absolutely. And of course, right now, looking at the statistically speaking for Orange City University, 160 points scored so far, only giving up 55. And I guess, again, the win streak is set 4-0 right here. Right now, and the big game against El Galley, that'll be at El Galley, 7:00 kickoff down in Melbourne on Friday night, and that's going to be a huge game. And of course, if you look at the rest of the schedule ahead, Flagler, Palm Coast, Jesuit, those will be the last 2 home games, and then of course 3 more games on the road. And I noticed this: the bye week is the last week of the season. Was that by design?
It was not by design. It was not by design. Kind of speaking to the bleacher project that we had mentioned. Our bye week was supposed to be this past week, but then Volusia County schools wanted to start on the bleachers. So Daytona and us shared a common bye. So we moved our week 11 game to week 4, with our last home game being week 7, so that they could hopefully get the bleachers started and, kind of get that finally done. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited for our kids and community. It'll be a benefit. Hopefully we're in a position where that'll be a benefit. Get some guys healthy and stuff like that. There's pros and cons to having a bye at the end of the year. I felt like last year we had a bye in the middle, and I'll be honest with you, we kind of came out sloppy the next game. And truth be known, with the way practice has been so far, like I said, we've gotten 2 practices outside in 3 weeks because of wet bulb and lightning. So not like exactly we've been, going out there for 4 days in a row every week and, going for 2 hours.
No, absolutely. And, Coach, we appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time. Best of luck down at Oak Galley this week, and we'll see how the things turn out for you Friday night, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what University does for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, man. They're a great team. It'll be a good test. Go Titans, and again, thanks for everything you do for high school football in Florida.
No, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Coach. And that was head coach Justin Roberts joining us here on the Central Florida Blitz here on FloridaHSFootball.com. Appreciate him joining us here and being able to talk about what the Titans have been doing. Again, Orange City University 4-0 on the season here as we roll along into week number 5. We got some fan comments. Going to have a couple fan questions. If you got a question or a comment, just drop that into the comment box on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and we'll get to that here. coming up on the other side of the break here. You're watching the Central Florida Blitz right here on FortHSFootball.com and all the FortHSFootball.com social media platforms. We'll be right back right after this 2-minute water break timeout.
1, 2, 3.
All right, welcome back here on the Central Florida Blitz here for this Monday night of September 16th, 2024. Joshua Wilson here. Make sure you're following us again on social media at Florida HS Football. That includes Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are close to 1,000 subscribers, and we would greatly appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because once we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, we can do some different things with y'all as the audience here on the FortHSFootball.com YouTube channel and on our Blitz shows. That includes the Central Florida Blitz, the Gulf Coast Blitz, the South Florida Blitz, and the North Florida Blitz, which air every Monday and Tuesday night right here on FortHSFootball.com. And if you're listening to the audio version on the FortHSFootball.com social, on the podcast network, I should say, the podcast available on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Those audio podcasts available there. And if you're listening to the audio version, we definitely thank you as well. All right, on to the fan question of the week. Well, actually got a couple of comments here. We actually got one big comment here about old rivalries are full of tradition, and from Emery Williams Smith, old rivalries are full of tradition and what makes high school football great. And I definitely agree with you there, Emery. And Hardy versus DeSoto, which is the state's oldest rivalry by 1 year, to St. Augustine versus Palaca, and Osceola versus St. Cloud. They were like in the fourth or fifth, but I think they've kind of moved up to the number 3 spot, actually, because some of the other rivalries like Avon Park and Sebring, those schools have not been playing each other for a while now. But again, he points out that with all the changes, many rivalries have ended, but those 3 rivalries have preserved and continue to be played for over a century. And we definitely agree with you, Emery, there on that about the rivalry games across the Sunshine State. And Billy Rayburn, Billy, our North Florida Blitzes, which was where we talk about Bradford versus Baker, I'll pop it up. It's another rivalry here, and that's a big one right there between those two schools. But when we talk about Bradford and Baker County, those are actually in the North Florida Blitz, which actually airs 8:30 tomorrow night on our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter /X, and YouTube. So we definitely appreciate that. All right. Well, with that said, we got the pick 6 for week Number 5 coming up here. Yes, indeed. And as we roll along, my results from last week, I was 5-1. I only missed one game last week, and kind of remember off the top of my head which game it was here. And I don't even know which game I had. I missed the thing. I was going through the results, and I was 5-1, and I did pretty well. So that said, how about this? 22-7 on the season with a winning percentage of nearly 76%. I will take it with the picks. All right, rolling along here with the first game of the pick 6. Lake Mary 2-1, coming off a bye week. Dr. Phillips 3-0, picking up that win over Ocoee 21-7. How about this? Lake Mary, Noah Grubbs, Dr. Phillips. Dr. Phillips is a very scrappy team. I will say this about the Panthers. Very scrappy. They not scoring like a high amount of points, but 3-0 on the season. That's how they have done it. For Lake Mary, Noah Grubbs, very strong arm, putting up a lot of points. Definitely needed that bye week after losing to Lakeland there in overtime there in week 3. But the Rams should be ready to go here at Dr. Phillips. And with that said, I'm taking my pick to be Lake Mary this week. Hand Dr. Phillips their first loss, put Lake Mary to 3-1 on the season. Lake Mary, they were the number 2 team still in our FloridaHSFootball.com media poll last week at 2-1. But I expect the Rams will probably still be sitting there, considering that our number 1 team in 7A, Venice, 4-0. And we'll talk more about Venice coming up at 8:30 on the Gulf Coast Blitz. So following up right after the Central Florida Blitz, the Gulf Coast Blitz here on the FloridaHSFootball.com social media networks. All right, rolling along here. Game number 2, we got Apopka, the Blue Darters, sitting at 3-1, who got a 49-0 win over Westport on Friday night, and they are going to be at Edgewater, who is 2-2, is coming, have been handed their second loss by Jones on Saturday evening there at Camping World Stadium. And looking at this right now, the Blue Darters, I mean, they finally put some points up, but it was against a very, very weak Westport team. All right, I don't expect Apopka to put up 49 points. I don't expect Apopka to put up 30 points. I don't expect Apopka to put up 25 points this week. I think Apopka would be lucky if they get 20 on the scoreboard in this game, because Edgewater is a good team despite the fact they're 2-2. I mean, your 2 losses are to 2 really good teams in the Orlando metropolitan area, and that'd be First Academy and, again, Jones. But with that said, this is a home game for Edgewater. This is not in Apopka, and this is why I am going with Edgewater for the win this week against Apopka. Hand Apopka their second loss of the season here. I just got that feeling that Apopka is just they'll put some points up. But Edgewater, I feel like Edgewater is definitely going to be more battle-tested. They're definitely more battle-tested, in my opinion, in terms of being able to put points up versus what Apopka. I'm not saying Apopka is not battle-tested. Apopka's got great defense, and they have shown it already this year. But the thing is, they have to put points up on offense. And, yeah, okay, they did it last week against Westport, and they finally did that. But I'm just thinking it's be a more one-off situation considering how weak Westport is compared to the other schools that Apopka has played so far this year. All right, rolling along here, we got Jones at Osceola. I told you this was a big game that we were going to talk about here this week. Jones 3-0, Osceola 3-1, and it's really a kind of, to me, it's a coin flip. I mean, Osceola really playing really some great football, but Jones, I think I gave Jones some bulletin board material when I was concerned that I was not going to pick him last week, and but this week I'm not going against Jones here in this one. And that was actually the Jones Edgewater game. That was the game that I lost. I'm sorry, that was the game I lost because I picked Edgewater, and Jones won that one because I was concerned that Jones with that struggle against Evans. But nope, I'm not going against the Jones Tigers this week, and that is my pick for the pick 6 this week on that game in particular. All right, rolling along into our 4th game. Lake Wells, 4-0 at Seminole, 3-0. Somebody has to take a loss this weekend. Boy, I thought Lake Wells was on the edge. We'll talk more about that in the Gulf Coast Blitz, but Lake Wells coming off a 1-point win at Sebring this past week, and Seminole coming off a 30-26 victory over Coconut Creek Monarch. So 2 tough games last week for both teams, and this is going to be another tight one. But when it comes to Seminole, and it's a home game for the Fighting Seminoles, I'm going with Seminole in this one. And I think it's going to be a by a whisker here or by a hair, whatever you want to look at it. But I am going with the Fighting Noles here to pick up their 4th win of the 2024 season. All right, rolling along to game number 5. This one just got added to the schedule last week. That is because First Academy had a hole come open on their schedule due to a team basically not playing football. It was Joshua Christian out of Jacksonville dropped them. And Delray Beach Atlantic had 2 bye weeks in a row, and Delray Beach Atlantic graciously agreed to a game here with the Royals. And so Delray Beach Atlantic making the trip up the Florida Turnpike to Orlando to play the Royals. Both teams 4-0 here on the season. Both teams most likely will be, both teams ranked in the top 25 here in the Sunshine State, and so this will be a huge battle, and that's why it is one of the last picks that we're picking here for this week. And really, the Eagles, they have played some really tough football. Really gave it to Blanche Ely last week. You know, the same Blanche Ely that beat Chaminade-Madonna week 2. So think about that for a moment as we look at this. First Academy obviously coming off that 42-6 win at Melbourne Central Catholic. And this one, this one's tougher. This one's tougher because I like what First Academy has been doing, but I like what Atlantic is doing. And this is ultimately a coin flip. But I just feel like this time around, when it comes to a bigger public school playing First Academy, it's not necessarily going to go that way. And that's why I'm taking Atlantic over First Academy in this game here this week. And with that said, we have the last game, and everybody probably knows which game that is because we have alluded to it a couple of times here during the show and, of course, during the interview with head coach Justin Roberts of Orange City University. That is University 4-0 at Eau Gallie 4-0. And man, this is a coin toss game because both teams are just on a roll. They're fighting really hard, and both teams definitely look like they're on their way to being postseason bound the way they have been playing these first 4 weeks of the 2024 season. All right. As I go through this, as we have said already, Orange City University, 160 points scored so far this year, 55 given up here. For Eau Gallie, when we look at the amount of points that they have scored this year, 123 to 30. Very, very comparable. But when it comes to Eau Gallie, the amount of points they have given up, 25 less. But if there's anything here, I am going to go with Orange City University on the road. I feel like that win in week 1 against Mainland fired them up even more so than maybe the win for Eau Gallie against Vero Beach in week 1. And that's where I'm going to stick with the University Titans. But again, coin flip game of games here this week in the Central Florida Blitz. And with that said, that is the pick 6 for week number 5 coming up here of the 2024 season here on the Central Florida Blitz. And Billy, we'll get them tomorrow for their Bradford pick. North Central Florida Blitz is tomorrow. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I've got the list here, the games that I've already got on the list here. So for that tomorrow, but We'll definitely talk about Bradford. We'll talk about that big upset win for the Tornadoes over Mandarin. I mean, that is huge there. Gene McKenzie, I'll pop that up there. Yeah, so yeah, we'll get that. Yeah, we'll have that on tomorrow night. So we'll definitely appreciate that. And all right, with that said, we are wrapping up here the Central Florida Blitz here. Definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. Stay tuned for the Gulf Coast Blitz coming up here at 8:30 here on FloridaHSFootball.com and all of our social media platforms. If you don't have the FloridaHSFootball.com app, hit that QR code, scan it, And follow us on the social media platforms at Florida HS Football, a separate X, Twitter, that is at FLAHS Football. Definitely appreciate everybody watching. We'll see you on the Gulf Coast Blitz coming up here at 8:30.